G'day folks, Costo here once again and welcome to another episode of Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. This week we shine a light on the Newcastle Rugby League and, to be precise, its flagship competition, the Denton Cup, which nowadays, for those not familiar, encompasses teams from as far afield as the Central Coast, Port Stephens and the Hunter Valley. My guest today, the boss of the Newcastle Rugby League, Adam Devcich, who'll join us a little later in the program. For now, a quick break. When we come back, we'll check out recent results and upcoming matches right across New South Wales and the ACT, starting with the Denton Cup, where the Pickers are looking to win another grand final. That's next on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Jason Costigan is my name. Thanks for joining us. Let's go around New South Wales and the ACT, starting with the Denton Cup in Newcastle. And last weekend, in the Saturday fixtures, Curry toppled Lakes United 22 points to 14. Wyong beat Northern Hawks 26-14. And Cessnock accounted for Macquarie 28 points to 12. And last Sunday, Central beat Souths 28 points to 12 also. The latter, Maitland Pickers, the defending champions, and Wyong Roos still first and second respectively on 19 points. Next, Western Suburbs, Cessnock are the entrants on 16, followed by Central, South and Curry on 14, Lakes and Macquarie 10, and the Northern Hawks on 2. This Saturday, the Pickers on the road to play the Rosellas, and the entrants head to the Coalfields to take on Curry, those games starting at 3 o'clock. And then on Sunday, round 14 continues. The home teams mentioned here, as you'd expect, Wyong versus Lakes United, Butcher Boys v the Goannas, and Northern Hawks up against Macquarie Scorpions. Again, the kickoff time for all matches is 3 p.m. Coming up later in the show, we'll have a closer look at the Denton Cup when we catch up with the boss of the Newcastle Rugby League, Adam Devcich, who is the general manager, my special guest for this episode of Bushbeat. In the neighbouring Hunter Valley in Group 21, no local footy this coming weekend because of the Tri-Series for the Northern region, which also involves Groups 4 and 19 at Scully Park, Tamworth. And as for round 11 in Group 21, Scone gave Muswellbrook a touch-up, 56-16, the final score. Greta Branxton flattened Denman 54-14, and a huge boost for Aberdeen, the Tigers disposing of Singleton 36-18. The Group 21 ladder, Greta Branxton leading the way on 14, Singleton 12, Scone 10, and then on 6 points, Muswellbrook, Aberdeen, Denman in that order. Up over the range into Group 4, and the Liverpool Plains, the Werris Creek Old Boys. They came together last weekend celebrating some major milestones, some major anniversaries for the club going back, in fact, over a century. In fact, exactly 100 years ago, their first premiership. They had plenty to celebrate, a rich history for the Werris Creek Magpies. And among the faces was the legendary Peter Wynn. Love your work, Wally. But in that top-of-the-table match at David Taylor Oval, disappointment for Werris Creek. Boggabri beat the Magpies 18-16. The Roos scoring 2 late tries to steal a famous win. Elsewhere, identical scores across 3 matches. Gunnedah wiped out Dungowan 60-0. Moree Boars crushed Katingal 60-0. And Norths belted Weewar, you guessed it, 60-0. So the official records tell us. The Group 4 ladder, despite those back-to-back losses, Werris Creek still leading the way in the race for the Whitehaven Coal Premiership. Dave Stewart's team and Boggabri both on 17. The Magpies first on 4 and against. Next, the Moree Boars 16 points. Gunnedah and Norths both on 15. Cootie and Dungowan on 4, and Weewar stuck with that big fat 0. Group 4 now on hold until July 26. That's club footy in Group 4 because of the Tri-Series, which, by the way, starts at 9 o'clock Saturday morning at Scully Park. And as for the big boys, that's first grade. Group 21 versus Group 19 at 10:40. Then Group 4 versus Group 19 at 1:30. And finally, Group 4 up against Group 21 at 4:20, which begs the question, why are they not using the lights at one of the best regional venues in the country? Crazy stuff in the country music capital. And don't tell me it's too cold. Further north in Group 19, Narwin beat Gyra 40 points to 34. The Super Spuds up by 22 points before a catastrophic late collapse. Other matches were postponed, we understand, because of a shortage of referees. And no club footy this weekend, with Group 19, of course, part of that tri-series. Down into the Northern Rivers, Casino in front of their old boys. They defeated Lower Clarence 20 points to 14. 24 all between Kyogle and Evans Head. Mullumbimby defeated Balambil 30 points to 16. Ballina overcame Tweed Coast 24-10. Maris Brothers defeated Murwillumbah 34-28. Coogin belted Byron Bay 54-8. And Tweed Heads beat Northern United 32-12. To the ladder in the Northern Rivers, Coogin 22 points, Maris Brothers 17, Ballina 15, Balambil 14, Evans Head 12. Then 4 teams on 11 points, Casino, Kyogle, Murwillumbah and Mullum. Tweed Heads next on 10, followed by Tweed Coast 9, Lower Clarence 7, Byron Bay 2 and Northern United on 0. In the Group 2 competition on the North Coast, the Mid-North Coast, in the Tui's new premiership, Nambucca edged out Maxwell 34-32, Sawtell brushed aside South Grafton 56-16, and Coffs 34, Ghost 16. The ladder, Woolgoolga 19, Nambucca 14, Sawtell 12, South Grafton 11, Maxwell 10, Coffs 10, and the Ghosts on 6. This Sunday at 2:40, Sawtell at Coffs, Nambucca at South Grafton, and the Ghosts at Woolgoolga. To the Mid-North Coast, Group 3, Port City beat Foster Tuncurry Hawks 44 points to 22. Port Macquarie Sharks crushed Taree City 60 points to 12. And Warhope 34-24 over Old Bar. And 18 all between Wingham and Macleay Valley. The ladder, Sharks leading the way on 16. Macleay Valley 12. Old Bar 11. Warhope 8. Wingham 7. Port City 6. Foster Tuncurry Hawks on 2 and Taree City on 0. This Saturday, Old Bar at Pirate Park to play Wingham and Port Mac at home to Warhope. Those games kick off at 3 o'clock. And at the unusual time of 5:31, that's what it says, 5:31, Taree City host the Hawks. And on Sunday, Macleay Valley at home to Port City, kick off at 2:45. On the Central Coast, last Friday night at Wyong, Erina kept it going, 28-16 winners over Roos. And on Sunday, Berkeley Vale 22, Woy Woy 42, Arimba 28, Terrigal 14, and Kincumber 24, Toukley 14. The ladder, Erina, still undefeated, are now on 21 points. Kincumber second on 15. Next, we've got 3 teams on 14. The entrants, Toukley and Wyong, followed by Woy Woy, Arimba and Terrigal on 8, and Berkeley Vale on 4. For this Sunday, Wyong at home to Toukley at 1:20. And from 3:05, Erina hosts the entrance. Kincumber back at MacKillop to play Berkeley Vale, and Terrigal down at Woy Woy. In the MacArthur Rugby League, the league resumes this coming Sunday. Just 3 games scheduled for 3 o'clock. The Oaks at home to Collegians. Camden play Oakdale at Kirkham Park, and the Southwest Goannas meet Thirlmere at Onslow Oval. Back on the coast in the Illawarra, the Harrigan Cup continued last weekend. Corrimal disposed of De La Salle 36-0. Collegians too good for Thirroul 40 points to 12, and West 22-6 winners over Dapto. The ladder, Collie still on top on 16, West 12, De La Salle and Dapto 10, and Thirroul and Corrimal on 6. This Saturday from 3 o'clock, De La Salle host the Butchers. Corrimal play Dapto and Cougar Town, and Collies at home to the Devils in a mouth-watering top-of-the-table clash, potentially a dress rehearsal for the big dance. In the Group 7 competition, in the catch-up games, Jamboree beat Milton Ulladulla 26-12, Gerringong scraped home 13-12 in a ripper of a contest against Shellharbour. Berry beat Nowra 30-0 for the Magpies, and Albion Park and Kiama played out a 14-all draw. We won't give you the ladder because last we checked it was not updated from what we could work out. This Saturday, Gerringong on the road to play Milton Ulladulla, and Sunday, Albion Park host Shellharbour. Stingrays play Nowra at Flinders Field, and the Knights versus the Magpies at Kiama, a 3 o'clock kickoff for all those games. In Group 16 last weekend, Narooma, they surprised me and many others. They won 30 points to 28 up at Bombala. Elsewhere, Merimbula Pambula smashed Maruya 52-8. Tathra cooked the Chooks 46-4 at Bega, and Eden 40 points to 6 over Bateman's Bay. The latter in Group 16, the undefeated Merimbula Pambula on 24, Tathra and Eden second and third respectively on 18, Narooma on 11 in fourth place despite their recent forfeit. Next, Cooma on 10, Bombala 9, Maruya 8, Bega 6, Bateman's Bay on 4. This Saturday, Bateman's Bay hosts Maruya at 5:30, and on Sunday, Cooma at the Dog Pound and Bega at Narooma. Kickoff is 2:30 and 3 p.m. respectively. In the Riverina in Group 9, no footy last weekend, which is rather crazy, I got to say. A relic from the past, perhaps, this weekend off business. All it does, I got to say, is provide a free kick for Aussie rules in the Riverina. This weekend, some big matches between some big rivals. On Saturday, the derby between Gundagai and Tumut. It's 3 versus 4 on the ladder. It should be a cracking game, that one, as winless brothers welcome Albury to GeoHex Stadium. And on Sunday, a Wagga derby at Harris Park, where South City play table-topping Roos as Temora host Junee and the Pickers on show at Kuta. All games start at 2:30. In neighbouring Group 20 last weekend, Waratahs 62, Mallee men no score. The visitors, I got to say, did pretty well against the undefeated Tigers, with West Wyalong scratching for players. In fact, they only had 13, and at least they took the field. Elsewhere, DPC 26, Yenda 16, TLU 38, Hay 20, Yanko 18, Black and Whites 28. The ladder, Waratahs on 24, DPC 16, or rather 18, I beg your pardon, Leeton 16, Yenda and Black and Whites on 12, Yanko and Hay on 11, TLU and West Wyalong both on 8. This coming Sunday, coming off the bye, Leeton at home to the Waratahs, DPC off to West Wyalong, Black and Whites host the Sharkies, and Yenda welcome the Hay Magpies. All games start at 2:30. In the Central West in the PMP, last weekend St Pat's 24, Lithgow Workies 20, Panthers 16, Mudgee 30, Orange Hawks 18, Orange Sims 34, Forbes 60, Macquarie no score, Dubbo Sims 26, Wellington 6, Ningen 48, Parks 24. The ladder, Dubbo Sims, Mudgee, Orange Sims, first, second and third respectively, all on 18 points. Forbes on 17, St Pat's and Wellington 14, Hawks 11, Ningen, Parks and Macquarie on 8, Lithgow and Panthers on 4. For this Sunday, the home teams mentioned first from 2 o'clock, Dubbo Sims versus Orange Hawks, Panthers v Forbes, Parks versus Mudgee, Wellington up against St Pat's, and Lithgow versus Macquarie. And at 2:15, Orange Sims versus Ningen. In the Woodbridge Cup, Manildra 22, Molong 6, Orange United 59, Peak Hill 18, Ugara 58, Grenfell 6, Condo 28, Trundle 36, Canowindra 72, Cargo 10. The ladder, Oberon on 22 points, Manildra and Cara both on 20, Canowindra, Orange United and Trundle all on 16, Peak Hill 13, Ugara and Condo 12, Molong 11, Grenfell 6, Cargo 4. This Saturday, Trundle make the trip to Wade Park to play Orange United from 3 o'clock, and Sunday from 2 p.m, Grenfell at Cargo, Oberon at Ugara, Canowindra at Manildra, Condo at Molong and Peak Hill at Cowra. In the Castlereagh League, Coona beat Gulgong 48-30, Coolah won 16-4 at Narromine, Dunedoo defeated Canamble 24-20 and Warren prevailed 42-24 at Cobar. The undefeated Coolah now on 33 points, Coona 29, Narromine 26, Gulgong 25, Cobar and Canamble and Dunedoo all on 21, Warren 18, Barradine 14. At 2:30 this Saturday in the Castlereagh, in the battle for the Christie and Hood Premiership, Coolah welcome Warren, Narromine host Coona, Canamble at home to Barradine and Dunedoo entertain Gulgong. In the Pro 10 Cup last weekend at Rankin Springs, the last round before the plot finals, Ivanhoe defeated Hillston 26-10, Barellan wiped out Deniliquin 60-0 as the Rams finished as minor premiers for the very first time. And in that grand final rematch, Rankin Springs 22, Narrandera 42. The Lizards had to win, by the way, to secure a place in the finals. The final standings in the Pro 10, Barellan and Ivanhoe first and second respectively, both finishing on 12 points. Rankin Springs on 10, Narrandera 8. And outside the final four, Hillston and Gulgowie both on 4 and Deniliquin on 2. The Blue Heelers, by the way, with the spoon, as you can tell, in their comeback season. Lean pickings it was for them, but finally back on the field after almost half a century. A massive achievement for Denny, considering what's been happening elsewhere in the bush. Well done to all concerned. And as for the finals, they start this Saturday at Barellan. In the ACT and the Canberra Raiders Cup, Gungahlin too good for Yass, 36-18. Tuggeranong edged out Belconnen United 30 points to 28. Roos wallop Woden Valley 58-8. And Blues beat West Belconnen 34-22. The ladder, Roos and Blues on 18, West Belconnen 13, Woden Valley 11, Gungahlin and Tuggeranong on 10, Belconnen United 7, Goulburn 5, and Yass on 4. This Saturday, Woden Valley welcome Yass Magpies. Tuggeranong host West Belconnen, the Blues at Gungahlin, and Belconnen United at home to Goulburn. And all those games, as usual, start at 3 o'clock. Finally, the George Took Shield. Last weekend, Harden beat Bynalong in that grudge match, 14 points to 12. The Goannas got grilled at Bungendore. The Tigers romping home 68 blot. Crookwell 30 defeated North Canberra 24, and Snowy River Bears 24-18 winners against the Stars. The GTS table, Harden on 14, Bungendore 13, Crookwell 12, Burrawa 10, Bynalong 9, Snowy River Bears 8, North Canberra 4, Googong 2, and the Stars on 0. This Saturday, another home game for the Brahmins, Bynalong to play Crookwell at 2:15, and then from 2:30, Burrawa at home to Harden, Bungendore host North Canberra, and last but not least, the battle for the wooden spoon, the Goannas at home to the Stars. After the break, we speak with the boss of the Newcastle Rugby League. That is next on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Costo in the chair as per usual. Time to talk country footy in the biggest regional city in the state of New South Wales, where the game is steeped in history, in Newcastle. And joining me right now is the GM of the Newcastle Rugby League, Adam Devcich. Adam, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Costo.
You're welcome. Great to have you with us. Adam, your city, your adopted city of Newcastle in the Hunter, it's a big town, a blue-collar town, and it loves its rugby league going back to the early days of rugby league being established in the Great Southern Land.
Indeed, yeah, we've got a great history in rugby league in Newcastle. Everybody knows Newcastle as a rugby league city, and that started all the way back in 1908 when Newcastle were part of the first New South Wales Rugby League competitions in 1908 and 1909, and after that the Newcastle Rugby League was born in 1910. So we have quite the history in rugby league.
So just to put everyone in the picture here, those early days in 1908 when it all started, Newcastle was there with the likes of eastern suburbs, western suburbs, South Sydney, Balmain, North Sydney, so forth at Birchgrove Oval from day one.
Yeah, that's right, and continued that for 2 years, like I said, in 1908 and 1909, before a 4-team competition was established in Newcastle in 1910, which had North Newcastle, Central Newcastle, South Newcastle, and West Newcastle.
Well, it's an amazing journey for the Newcastle Rugby League. Nowadays, you're the boss of an 11-team first-grade competition. We'll come to that in a moment, but such a rich history for the game in Newcastle, a city that's had its ups and downs, the Great Depression, World War II. In fact, the city coming under attack by the Japanese during the war, the closure of the steelworks, the Newcastle earthquake, so much adversity, yet the game continues to this day and is such a big part of many people's lives.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel like sport through events like World Wars, the Great Depression, was the thing that kind of kept communities together. And one of those sports in Newcastle was definitely rugby league through those times.
And you've had your good times and bad times. The competition today, different to the early days, of course. In fact, if memory serves me right, the Newcastle Rugby League, you run a first-grade competition encompassing no less than 6 local government areas. It's a bigger footprint than what some people might imagine.
Yeah, that's right. So we have 11 clubs in what is our men's first-grade competition, the Denton Engineering Cup. We have three clubs around the Coalfields region, the Maitland Pickers, Cessnock Goannas, and the Curry Bulldogs. We've got and they represent both Maitland and the Cessnock local government areas. A recent addition to the competition in 2023 were the Northern Hawks. They represent the Port Stephens area, and are the most recent iteration of teams in the Port Stephens region, and the club's doing a really good job to become a sustainable club in that region, and that has been a challenge over the last 20 years or so, but they're doing a great job in being sustainable. And so, yeah, they represent Port Stephens. In the Newcastle region, we've got those traditional clubs that I talked about, except for North Newcastle. They no longer exist, but we do have Central Newcastle, South Newcastle, and West Newcastle. And then we have in Lake Macquarie, we have the Macquarie Scorpions and Lakes United Seagulls. And then down on the Central Coast, a recent addition in the last couple of years also has been the Entrance Tigers and the Warangaroos, who have long dominated the Central Coast competition. And given the strength of those two clubs, they fit in really well with the Denton Engineering Cup. So that makes up the 11 clubs.
And the tribalism, something pretty special for the people of Newcastle and for Novocastrians, no matter where they live.
Yeah, that's right. Rugby league is a tribal sport, and it is really obvious to see around our local competitions the level of tribalism from what is a born and bred rugby league town is a really special part of our game.
And some of the biggest names in the game have come through Newcastle, played in Newcastle, from Clive Churchill through to Andrew Johns. There's a couple of big names from the past, a couple of superstars from different eras.
Yeah, that's right. Clive Churchill was part of that. There was, in 1964, there was a state cup competition whereby the Newcastle representative team won what was the country championships at the time, and then went to Sydney and played in the state cup, and played against all the teams in what was the New South Wales Rugby League competition at the time.
So the old Sydney comp.
Yeah, that's right, and that was a knockout. That was a knockout competition, and like I said, that was in 1964, and that Newcastle team took all before it and beat in the semi-final of that competition the St George Dragons, who at the time were in the midst of their 11 in a row premiership winning streak. So they beat them in the semi-final, and then beat Parramatta in the final at number 1 sports ground here in Newcastle, with the likes of the Thornett brothers in it. So there are...
So Ken Thornett, Dick Thornett.
Yeah, that's right. And so, those sorts of stories are part of rugby league folklore in Newcastle. The likes of Terry Panowitz was in that team. Brian Carlson, who was the coach. We have, like I said, a really rich history around that early 60s, and like you mentioned, from Clive Churchill to Andrew Johns, there's been many a local many great rugby league players in Newcastle.
I'm going to go to a break in a moment here on Bushbeat. We're speaking with Adam Devcich, the CEO or General Manager of Newcastle Rugby League. Before we go into the break and talk about each club in the Denton Cup competition, Adam, what about your background? Many moons ago, I remember bumping into you, so to speak, in a previous life when you were, a referee, a touch judge at the highest level. And tell us about your background and some of your achievements going back in a previous life.
Oh, look, before I did this job, I refereed for many years, and like most referees in most sports, I started refereeing because I tried playing and was no good at it, so refereeing was the next best thing, and I started that at 13. And I refereed through my teenage years, and made it to the NRL in 2007, and did that as a full-time job for a decade, which was a lot of fun. That was really cool. And since then I've done various sports administration roles. Worked for Football Australia, contracted with a couple of NRL clubs in the Knights and the Storm, and find myself here in Newcastle Rugby League, which is a role I really enjoy.
Righto, we'll stick around. We're going to hear from Adam Devcich on the other side of the break, and we'll go through each of the clubs that play in the first grade competition. That's the Denton Cup here in Newcastle. More to come right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Jason Costigan with you, and I'm joined by Adam Devcich, the General Manager of the Newcastle Rugby League. Adam, without further ado, the Denton Cup, your first grade competition. 11 teams competing in season 2025. Let's, in no particular order, go through them. Starting with Maitland, the Pickers. They've won the last 3. Can they do it again?
Well, yeah, like you said, they've won the last three competitions. They've started the season really well. they've got some class players that are still at the club, have been at the club for 5 years or more, and I think that's been one of the cornerstones of their success. They have lost a couple of those players this season, but the likes of their halfback Brock Lamb, who played at the Knights, Chad O'Donnell, who was the Country Player of the Year in 2023, Jaden Butterfield, who's their starting prop and has been at the club for a long time. Their coach Matt Lantry has been at the club since 2020, and between them all, they've made a really successful club over the last few years.
All right, let's go into the coalfield, starting with the Goannas from Cessnock.
Yeah, so Harry Seeker is the coach of the Cessnock Goannas, and they've been perennial semi-finalists over the last few years, and they've got the likes of Braden Musgrove and Luke Huth in their side that have again been there for the last few years and have experience in the night system.
All right, let's go to their arch rivals, Paul Stringer and the boys from Curry, the Bulldogs.
Yeah, look, Curry over the last couple of years, it's no secret that they've really struggled, but they've brought Paul Stringer to the club this year, and the club started the season really well, and he's brought Jack Stringer with him, and they've made some real good inroads into the 2025 season.
Let's go up the Pacific Highway, the Northern Hawks. It's been a difficult season so far for them.
It has been a difficult season. They're a young club, and they have become a sustainable club, and that's through the work of their coach Brad Tye, who many of you will know. Garth Brennan is their football manager, and they've got some of the players from Maitland that have moved across, Faitoa and James Taylor, and so they've added some starts to the team for 2025, and like I said, they're becoming they will be a sustainable force in this competition.
Let's come back into town and let's have a look at the Butcher Boys, a famous club in this part of the world. Last year, finally making a grand final, close but no cigar.
Yeah, runners-up last year, had a good run through the semi-final series. It was a really good story. They haven't won a grand final since 1949, and to see them get really close was exciting for the local rugby league community. Their captain's a local junior, Cameron Anderson, who's the brother of Grant Anderson, who's at the Storm. Their halfback is Isaiah Olsen, a really exciting player who actually has an AFL background. And then they've got Lockie O'Brien, who was one of our Newcastle Rebels rep players, who's their captain. So they're an exciting team, and they'll be thereabouts come semi-final time again, I'd say.
All right, what about South Newcastle? How are they looking?
Look, run by Ryan Glanville, who's been in the top three of our Player of the Year points players over the last 2 or 3 years. He's their 5'8", really exciting fullback in Reeve Howard. And one of our other Newcastle Rebels, Matt Moon, and they're coached by Andrew Bobcat Ryan, who I'm sure most of your listeners will know well and truly.
No doubt about that. And speaking of coaches, what about Rick Stone and the Rosellas, Western Suburbs? Among their star recruits, the former Fijian captain is a star player in both hemispheres, Kevin Igama.
Yeah, look, Kevin's has been a great addition to the Rosellas in 2025 through our marquee player program. Corey Dennis, also ex-Knights, is at the club. Sam Clune was a big off-season buy for West, who came across from South, and as you said, they're coached by Rick Stone. Obviously, great credentials there, and they're going through the season really well, and they'll be thereabouts come semi-final time too. Next,
Lakes United. What about them?
Lakes have got new coaches this year, one of whom is Brad Murray, who a lot of your listeners will know too, and also Alan Lantry. And I guess their marquee players, or their players to watch, are the Matautia brothers, who have got both NRL and Super League experience in Sione and Peter, and they've added. Peter's been at the club for 2 years now, but they've definitely added some starts to that team.
Moving right along, the Macquarie Scorpions.
Yeah, Macquarie had a difficult year last year, lots of injuries, new coach, but they've gone through the season pretty well so far, and they're probably headlined by a couple of ex-NRL players, Penny Terapo and Marvin Filippo, that again have added some quality to that team, and some local players. Some of the Briggs brothers, Andy Sumner, have come back to the club after being away for a few years.
All right, now to the final segment, if you like, of wrapping up the competition here, the Central Coast component. Firstly, the entrance, how are they shaping up?
The entrance got beat by Central in the prelim final last year, so they had a really good season. Again, Jamie Forbes was their head coach last year, and he's retired, and so their new head coach is Ben O'Connell. Again, they've got some really good strike power. Tony Pello is probably the quickest player in the competition, who's their fullback, come 5'8" at times. Really exciting. Played in the Q Cup and the New South Wales Cup too, I think. So he's really exciting. Brendan O'Hagan's at the club for his second year. He's come across from England, and one of their new recruits for 2025 is Connor Kirkwood, who's played Newcastle Rebels and was out at the Coalfields last year. All right, and last but not least, Wyong. Yeah, the Wyong Roos, coached by Tony Gleeson, who's been in the coach through the night system. Their captain is the former captain of Maitland, their hooker Alex Langbridge, so he's added some quality to their team. Zach Montgomery's had been playing well until he got injured recently, and then Matt Ikavalu, who's also been at the NRL and Super League, is in their centre. So again, they've recruited really well, and that adds more quality players to the competition. All right, final question. You've been making some great moves here, if I may say, off the field. One of the great events that you had this year was Magic Round. It's caught on, something that started in the UK. The NRL's obviously embraced it, bigger than and better than ever, and Newcastle no exception to the rule. How did that go for the Newcastle Rugby League Magic Round? Yeah, look, we've run that for 2 years now. Slightly different. So 2 years? Yeah, we've run it for 2 years. Slightly different models each year. The concept is to have all the first grade games in the same place at the same time. There's some tweaks that are required to that to be successful. We need 5 clubs to be happy to give up a home game, for that to be a something that we continue with. So that to make that profitable enough for us to hand those profits back to 5 clubs requires some doing. Look, it's a really good concept, but at the end of the day, it needs to be profitable for the home clubs. So that's something we need to work on. Well, look, we salute you with what you're doing, running the game here in Newcastle, and all the best for the rest of season 2025, and particularly the Denton Cup, the 11-team competition, the flagship competition here in the Hunter, and one of the great competitions in bush footy. That's right. Well, I'm probably a little bit biased, but it's not one of the great competitions in just bush footy, but outside the NRL, it's one of the strongest competitions in the country. And if you're in and around the region and you get an opportunity, get down to see some quality footy in the Denton Engineering Cup. There he is, Adam Devcich. Adam, thanks for joining us here on Bushbeat. Thanks for having me. The General Manager of the Newcastle Rugby League here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. A quick break, back with more right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Now to Queensland, starting with the Torres Strait. This Saturday it's round 2 in that beautiful part of the world in the Island Rooster Challenge. Big shout out to everybody in the Torres Strait. At 10 a.m, we've got Seychelles Sharks v Mulga Tigers. 11 a.m, TI Roosters v Suburbs. 1 p.m, Mulga Tigers and the Chooks. At 2 o'clock, Suburbs v the Sharks. 4 p.m, Mulga Tigers and Suburbs. And at 5 p.m, it's the Sharkies and the Roosters. In Cairns, it was Indigenous round in Far North Queensland Rugby League last weekend. On Saturday night, Edmonton 24, Yarrabah 38. And Kangaroos coming from behind to beat Atherton 36-24.
That was after the Chooks led 18-0 before they imploded. In the Sunday game, Suburbs 50, Innisfail 14, Ivanhoe's 28, Tully 30, and Cairns Brothers 54, Mossman 24. Cairns Brothers leading the way on 26 points, Atherton and Suburbs both on 22, Roos and Tully 16, Mareeba and Mossman 15, Yarrabah and Ivanhoe's 13, Innisfail 10, Edmonton on 0. For this Saturday, we have 3 matches, all of them starting at 6 o'clock. Innisfail welcome Mossman. The Storm head up the range to play the Roosters. And premiership favourites Cairns Brothers make the trip down to the home of the Golden Gumboot, where they take on the Tully Tigers. And on Sunday, Suburbs play Mareeba at Gordon Vale, whilst in town it's Roos and Yarrabah. And those games starting at 3 o'clock. In the Gulf of Carpentaria, the Gulf Cluster last weekend came to Burketown. There were 5 games according to the official records, and in the game that everyone wanted to see, Doomadgee Dragons edged out Normanton Stingers 12 points to 10. In the other fixtures, Mornington Island Raiders 24-6 winners over Doomadgee United. Doomadgee Dragons defeated Cowanyama 30-12. Doomadgee United 20, Cowanyama 14, and Mornington Island Raiders beat the Mungibbi Dangara 16-4. Next up in the Gulf Cluster, the finals at Normanton on August 23. In Townsville, last weekend, the competition included matches in the cane-cutting towns of Ingham and also Ayr. Herbert River Crushers winning their home match against Charters Tower 16-14. And south of Townsville, the Roosters had a difficult day at the office. That's putting it mildly. Souths creamed the Roosters 64 points to 10. And in Townsville itself, as the Supercars took over the city, identical scores in the suburbs. Brothers beat Centrals 28-16. And Western Lions beat Norths, you guessed it, 28-16. The latter, Souths leading the way on 24 points, Brothers 20, Herbert River 14, Burdekin 12, Western Lions 11, Charters Towers 10, Centrals 8, North 7. For this weekend, no footy in Townsville itself, all 3 matches out of town and all on Saturday at 4:30. It's Burdekin at home to Brothers as the Crushers play Centrals at Ingham. And from 6:30, the Miners and Souths in the great gold mining city of Charters Towers. In the Mackay competition last weekend at Moranbah, the Miners 40-12 over Wests. And in that game on the coalfields, the Craig Menkins medal went to Miners bench player Chris Ayton, who is the brother of PNG Hunters coach and former PNG international Paul Ayton, whom I called many moons ago for both club and country. And for those unaware, the late Craig Menkins, a much-loved coach and former player, who was heavily connected to both Moranbah and Western Suburbs, an original Cowboys player when I called him way back in 1995. The late Craig Menkins, sorely missed but never forgotten. And also last weekend, Souths edged out Magpies 24-22 and Brothers flogged Serena 46-16. Souths and Moranbah first and second respectively on 21 points. Brothers right up their clacker on 20. Magpies 10. Serena and Western Suburbs 8. And the Whitsunday Brahmins on 6. This Saturday, Moranbah with a big road trip to the Whitsundays to take on the Brahmins in Prossie and Serena welcome Magpies. Those games getting underway at 6:30. And then on Sunday, Brothers play Souths in a big Southside derby at Leprechaun Park from 3 o'clock. In the Central Highlands last weekend, the Springshaw Mountain Men defeated Claremont Bears 38 points to 14. And in the railway town of Bluff, the Rabbitohs tamed the Tigers 50 points to 12, with Sean Ezzie having a night out for the locals, scoring 4 of his team's 9 tries. On Saturday, the Blackwater Crushers accounted for Brothers 42 points to 34. And the game schedule for Middlemount between the Panthers and Peak Downs Pirates did not proceed after the Pirates put up the white flag. Yes, another forfeit, with Peak Downs pulling out for the rest of the season, as mentioned in our news on rugbyleague.com last week. Brothers, Middlemount and Bluff, first, second and third in the Central Highlands, respectively on 20 points. Tigers 17, Blackwater 15, Springshaw 12, Claremont 8, Peak Down 6. But as I say, they have quit the competition. This Friday, Claremont hosts Middlemount, the final home game of the season for the Bears, as the Crushers welcome Springshaw. 8 o'clock kickoff for those matches. And on Saturday from 7 p.m, a huge local derby at Mackendale Park. It's Brothers v Tigers. In Rockhampton's NRG Industrial Premiership last weekend, title favourites Rocky Brothers scored 10 tries to 2 in routing Tenham Sands 48 points to 8. North's 8, Yeppoon Seagulls 50, Emu Park 70, Fitzroy's no score, and Valley's 24, Glaston Brothers 20. To the latter, Rocky Brothers undefeated on 23 points, Yeppoon and Emu Park on 18. Then Norths on 14, Valleys 10, Gladstone Brothers 6, Tenham on 4 and Fitzroy's on 1. This Saturday, the Galloping Greens, well, the not-so-Galloping Greens, that's Fitzroy's, they're scheduled to make the trip to Gladstone to play Valleys at 3 o'clock. And then across town at 6:30, it's Gladstone Brothers v Tenham Sands at Blaine Park. On Sunday to complete round 13, Norths at home to Emu Park, and on the Capricorn Coast we have Yeppoon and Rocky Brothers, those games to kick off at 3 p.m. In Bundaberg, we are continuing to hear reports that next season we'll see a downsizing of the famous 47th Battalion. We understand there is a proposal to have just 4 teams involved next year and a big push to have it played on Anzac Day. Stay tuned for more. And as for club footy, last weekend in the BRL at Salter Oval, Brothers beat Waves 30 points to 22, and East scored 16 tries to 1 in destroying West's 86 points to 4. And at Stafford Park in the Fraser Coast Derby, Roos defeated Harvey Bay 26 points to 18. To the latter, Waves and Brothers first and second respectively on 21, Roos on 11, East 10, Harvey Bay 9, West on 2. This Saturday, East play Waves at Salter at 3:45, followed by West v Harvey Bay at 5:30. That's on the assumption, of course, that the Gulls make the trip to Bundy. And from 5 o'clock at Estale Park, it's Roos and Brothers. In the Northern Districts, we're continuing to hear some reports here that are rather interesting as well, and it's in relation to the future of the competition, with some talk that the league could actually be shut down, with some clubs feeding into Bundaberg and others into Gladstone. Regardless, the show rolls on, and last weekend, Calliope was the venue. Miriamvale defeated Gin 40 points to 14. South Callan beat Avondale 32-16. And the Roosters, in front of a big hometown crowd, 30-10 winners over the Marlins. The undefeated Isis Devils, the team to beat. They're conceding only 9 points a game this season. And after the bye, the Devils on 20 points, South Callan 18, Avondale 14, Miriamvale and Gin 10, Calliope 8, Marlins on 2. This Saturday, all roads lead to the Discovery Coast. And a ridiculously early start for Avondale, especially with Gary Larson's old club Miriamvale scheduled to play the Tigers at 9 a.m. That's right, just after breakfast for so many of us. At 10:40, we have Calliope v South Callan, and the main event at 3 o'clock, it's Marlins and Devils. And if the Marlins get to within 40, they will be doing well. In the Central Burnett last Saturday in the Titan Industries Premiership, Mundubbera crushed Monto 84-6. The Tigers scoring 16 tries to 1. Kanan Beasley finishing with 28 points himself from 2 tries and 10 goals. And in a close one, Biggendon took top spot by edging out Gayndah 18-16. The Warriors on 21 points, Gayndah 20, Mundubbera 17, Monto 8, Eisvale 6. This Saturday, the host club is Monto. We have Gayndah versus Mundubbera from 3 o'clock, according to the schedule. And then from 5, it's Roos and Eidsvold. In the South Burnett at Cherbourg last weekend, the Indigenous All-Stars defeated the non-Indigenous All-Stars 38 points to 18. Congratulations to all players involved in that fixture last weekend at Cherbourg. This Sunday, club footy returns. At 1:30, the Hornets take on Mergen, followed by Kingaroy and Wandai at 3 o'clock. That's according to the league. And the venue, they say, is the Mergen Showgrounds, even though the Mustangs are listed as one of the visiting teams. On the Sunshine Coast, round 13, last Saturday night, Noosa beat Stanley River 42 points to 20. Biwa accounted for Caloundra 32-6, and Caboolture and Maroochydore a 26-all draw. And on Sunday, Coolum 28, Nambour 10. Stanley River leading the way on 48 points, Coolum 44, Maroochydore 38, Noosa on 30. Biwa and Kawana 28, Nambour 20, Caloundra 18, Caboolture on 2. This Saturday from 5:30 we have the Swannies and the Bulldogs and Colts versus Dolphins. And from 3 o'clock Sunday, Noosa play Nambour at Tewantin, and at Woodford Showground, Stanley River take on arch rivals, their old enemy, the Caboolture Snakes. In the Ipswich Rugby League, last Saturday, Norths romped home 58-16 against the Fassifern Bombers in the Cornflakes Cup. Jets 58-18 over West End. And I say cornflakes because that's not long after I have my cornflakes. It started at 10 o'clock, a bit like that 9 o'clock game coming up this weekend on the Discovery Coast. And on last Sunday's match between Brothers and Redbank Plains, it was Redbank Plains running out 60 points to 18 victors. As for the table, Redbank Plains on 13, Jets 12, Brothers 9, Norths and Bombers 8, West End 4. This Saturday in round 10, In Ipswich, we have West End versus North at Daniels Park as Redbank Plains welcome the Jets. Both games set to start at 6 o'clock. And then on Sunday from 3, it's the Bombers and Brothers at Hayes Oval. In Toowoomba, fixtures resumed last weekend after the mid-season break because of the Madsen Rasmussen, a break for most teams that is. In round 12, Brothers 26, Warwick 22, Gatton 20, Oakey 6, Souths 18, Wattles 42, Valleys 48, Highfields 28, and Gundawindi 46, Dalby 28. The Gatton Hawks still leading the way on 22 points, followed by Wattles on 18, Brothers 16, Gundawindi 13, Valleys 12, Dalby 11, Warwick 10, Pittsworth 8, Oakey 4, Highfields and Souths on 3. This Saturday, Dalby host the Warwick Cowboys as Oakey welcome Gundawindi. Those games kick off at 6:30. And then on Sunday from 2:30 at Souths v Valleys at Gold Park as Highfields welcome Pittsworth. Heading west on the Warrego in the Roma competition, all the home teams won last weekend at Arthur Beetson Oval. Cities beat the Battlers 18-10. Out of town, Chinchilla defeated Jandowie 22-14. Mitchell brushed aside Miles 48-14. And Wallumbilla Surratt Red Bulls got the chocolates against St George 28-20. Cities on top on 36. Chinchilla second on 24. Jandowie 22. Mitchell, the Battlers and Miles all on 20. St George 18, the Red Bulls 16. This Saturday, another home game for Cities from 3 o'clock when they play Chinchilla, and at the same time on Sunday, Miles welcome the Red Bulls, Mitchell at Jandowie, and St George at home to the Battlers. In the Border Rugby League, last Saturday in the Granite Belt, Stanthorpe had to dig deep to beat Tenterfield 24-20, and for some reason, the two teams do it all again this Saturday at the very same venue, starting at 2 o'clock. And the competition table in this three-team league, undefeated Gremlins on 12, Tenterfield 4, Inglewood on 2. Finally to the Gold Coast, none of the home teams, none of them won last weekend. On Friday night on the road, Burleigh Bears belted Southport 82-0, and on Saturday, Costigan beat Currumbin 32-12 at Merv Craig, and 30-all between Helensvale and Runaway Bay at Robert Daly Park. The latter, Burleigh Bears still undefeated on 24 points, Costigan and Currumbin second and third respectively on 14, Runaway Bay 11, Helensvale 9, and the winless and tackle-shy Tigers on 0. Coming up, round 13 this Sunday from 3 o'clock, Runaway Bay v Southport at Bycroft Oval, and Helensvale v Costigan at Robert Daly, and then at 3:30 at Burleigh, the home side looking for win number 13 at home to Currumbin. That's our look at the Sunshine State. Stick around. Up next, our final segment as we go coast to coast on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat and our final segment where we crisscross the country. Firstly in Melbourne, club footy resumes this Saturday. Northern Thunder host Sunshine, Sunbury at home to Altona, and the Rabbitohs off to Casey. In the Goulburn Murray, a doubleheader coming up on Saturday at Glenrowan, Wodonga v Border Bears followed by Wang and Shep. In South Australia, the local game in an absolute mess, I must say, on the back of 2 forfeits. The league resumes tomorrow night. That's Friday night with Eels v Warriors. And then on Sunday, Roosters host Black Swans as Adelaide Plains go up against Souths in the Barossa. In the West, in the Fuel to Go and Play Premiership last weekend, South Perth beat the Giants 48-20, Freo 42-26 over Rockingham, and North Beach 24-10 winners against the Bears. For this Saturday, Sharks host the Eagles from 5:30, and then from 6:30, Giants versus Bears as the Roosters play the Lions. Finally, in the top end, in the Dabsco Premiership, last weekend, Brothers 28-6 over Palmerston, Litchfield romping home 70-0 against Souths, and the Northern Sharks 32-18 over Nightcliff. This Saturday, after that latest controversy with the referee walking off the field because of spectator abuse, we have Raiders v Dragons, Sharks versus Bears, and Brothers up against Souths. That's our show for another week. Thanks to Adam Devcich from the Newcastle Rugby League for joining us, and thanks always to Steve Mascord once again for pulling this together. For now, this is Costo signing off on Bushbeat. Stick around. The news is next.